What's up everybody? My name is Light and right now we're in my creative world that I've worked on for like 5 years at this point. And this is the Lost Castle, which you can see the video for right here. If you've already seen it, you probably know what this is and you're wondering why I'm here. Well, we're starting the video off at the Lost Castle because we are going to be building a new project nearby. The first thing that I did was extend the road from the main entrance of the Lost Castle down this hill and throughout this birch forest. Eventually, we reached the area that I'm going to start building in for this video. Not too long ago, I read this super long comment from one of you. Essentially, this person was having trouble getting past something that's usually referred to as builder's block. You've probably heard of writer's block, which is basically when you aren't really sure how to proceed with your ideas in writing. This is basically a creative slowdown and can happen in any kind of creative field, and it's usually referred to in Minecraft as builder's block because, you build in Minecraft. It makes sense to me. I read this comment at a time where I was actually having major builder's block with this project. Believe it or not, my original idea for this build was not at all a citadel. It was actually going to be some kind of pirate cove or pirate bay or something. I put a ship here. That's what the ship was for. I didn't really know how to proceed with the project. I started creating an actual village, but I deleted that replay footage in the process of realizing that I didn't want to continue with that idea. And I thought it would be a really good theme to bring up in this video and kind of talk about how I personally deal with builder's block or just creative blockages in general. Anyway, yeah, that's why I started building a crashed ship into this cliffside. However, months went by and I had built part of a little pirate village, but I just wasn't enjoying the process. I didn't like how it was turning out, I didn't know how to proceed, and there were many times when I left the build to work on other projects like the watermill and the vineyard. Throughout this video, you're gonna see me change the design for this build pretty drastically, very many times. And there were also many times where I thought about completely abandoning this project, but I didn't. Instead, I kept it on the back burner and I only returned when I felt really truly inspired to work on this project. Eventually, as you can tell, I ended up swapping out the Pirate Bay idea for a new one. The location we're situated in right now is directly between the Lost Castle and Breeze Peak Castle, which you can also find a video for here. I thought it would be interesting to expand the lore for this world and show that historians and researchers live here at the Citadel and they're trying to understand and learn about the past histories associated with the Lost Castle that has been forgotten to time. So using red wool, I came up with this very geometric plan for the Citadel, and I designed this sort of octagon shape. I planned out the towers and bridges that would reach out from the outer walls of the build, and then I used granite and brick blocks for the walls. I also used yellow glazed terracotta and polished diorite to detail them out, but I would later change this color palette many times, so don't get too attached to this look. I continued to expand the Citadel using this array of blocks, adding bridges and towers along the geometric plan of the build. And finally, I completed the topmost tower and looked back on what I had created. I definitely didn't hate the design, but when I added extra details like a swirling pattern of diorite slabs encircling the towers, the Citadel just looked way too much like a Candy King castle for my liking. It was at this point that I began to change up the design of the Citadel. I began with the towers by changing their balconies for a more enclosed tower room that would also increase the overall height of the build. I played around with different colors and blocks until I settled on oak wood, which I'm going to change later, so don't get attached. I used World Edit to copy and paste these changes all around the Citadel. I liked some of these changes, but the design still didn't feel right with me. So I made the most drastic change yet, and I swapped out all of the bricks and the granite blocks that were making up the walls, and I replaced them with the new chiseled and polished tough blocks. The new chiseled tough block designs look really cool, and I thought that they would fit perfectly for this build. I also changed up the color of all of the roofs with a mixture of red sandstone and the new resin brick blocks. This is the design I'll stick with for a little bit, but this is going to change too. Now here, I took a break from the Citadel because I was so tired of all the changes I was making, and I decided it would be a good time to work on the terrain surrounding the project. I used World Edit to help terraform, flatten out, and clear out the land of all trees, and then I transformed this ravine kind of encircling the Citadel, and I turned it into a riverbed for, well, a river that I created also surrounding the Citadel. I also placed some waterfalls right over here next to the Citadel, in the cliffside, to indicate a source for this new river. I finally returned to the Citadel and I fixed up the front of the build by removing a tower and making space for a larger main entrance. And then I planned out a huge diagonal bridge, which is going to act as a main pathway to the Citadel. This bridge hangs over the older paths and connects these two landmasses together, allowing for more direct access to the Citadel. I am going to come back here later to further embellish the bridge and add some details, but first I returned to the Citadel to work on the roof designs of the towers a little bit more. This time I settled with a new design using red nether bricks and resin bricks still, but in a different format. Don't worry, we're only changing this one more time. I started planning out some of the terraces on the hillside between the bridge and the Citadel for some gardens that I wanted to put on these terraces. I switched between working on these and fleshing out the terrain with some more decorative foliage and lily pads in the water, along with coral reefs and some custom trees. The tree design that I went with is fairly basic because I didn't necessarily want to spend my time filling the entire area with actual custom trees. Instead, I just used a brush in World Edit to swap out the leaves of a normal spruce tree with flowering azalea and normal azalea leaves. I also continued to work on the garden terraces, and I added some columns to the bridge for structural support. And now, zooming way out of the build, I cleared out more of the birch forest over here for a new pathway that is going to connect this bridge to the other road system between the Lost Castle and the Citadel. And with that road in place, I continued working on the design of the bridge, adding a roof with red nether bricks and some resin bricks for detailing. And then I returned to the terraces to finish off the paths as well as some actual gardens with a bunch of different flowers, ferns, and azalea bushes. Now, in this small clearing that I made in the forest outside of the main entrance to the Citadel, I wanted to build some kind of ancient structure for ceremonies or rituals. I was inspired by the simple shape of Stonehenge, and I wanted to transform this idea into something a bit more similar to my design of the Citadel. So I designed a stone octagonal ring being held up by 8 rocky pillars. In the center of this formation, I built a table with a ring of water and a lightning rod to indicate that this is some kind of altar. And then I also placed a bunch of different items and blocks around it to show that people actually use this thing. After that, it was time to finish up the rest of the garden terraces by adding some more flowers and ferns and azalea bushes. And with all of those gardens in place, I still felt like the area felt a little bit empty. So I built up some towers at the end of all of the pathways. I really like these towers because some of them have bridges that connect them directly to other levels of the terrace, while others connect directly to another tower. This makes the garden terraces a bit more interesting and fun to explore. And now, let's go straight into the Citadel itself. On the ground floor, I began building up a spiral staircase to reach all of the floors. I wrapped the walls with bookshelves, lecterns, armor stands, and flower pots. Continuing the spiral staircase on the next floor up, I created some wooden bridges leading off from the staircase to the bridges outside of the tower. And still continuing the staircase up to the next floor, I kept on adding stuff to decorate the space, which included some custom banners that I designed just for the Citadel, some shelves with pots and barrels to indicate storage, and a bunch of armor stands and various other blocks. And now, back outside, this time in the courtyard of the Citadel, I added some flowers along all of the walls and outlining the path encircling the Citadel. Taking a step back and looking at the overall design of the Citadel, I decided to add another level of bridges encircling it. Here's when things get a little crazy. I swapped out all of the resin blocks that I had used in the roof. That's right, I took all the resin blocks away. No more resin blocks in this build, and if that makes you upset, go watch this video. Anyways, I swapped out all of the resin, including in the roofs of the towers, with the new cherry blossom wood, crimson and mangrove wood, and even some blocks of amethyst. I also did come back to the bridge and the garden terraces to make this new change here as well, and in the process I ended up adding these 3 towers spanning across the roof of the bridge. And after all of that, I returned finally to the cliffside below the Citadel to continue working on the natural terrain. I did this by adding some moss blocks and foliage pretty much everywhere along the coastline. I also added some glowberry vines, leaves, and the new pale mossy vines around the edges and tops of the cliffs and swinging down to the cliffside. I also came down and wrapped these around the mast of the abandoned ship that I somehow hadn't gotten rid of yet. I just kind of accepted that that ship was here to stay. I figured it could be part of some kind of mysterious lore for the Citadel that I don't really care to explain, but you can come up with any story you want. Or maybe, by the time that the update for this world is out for download, I might have some hidden books in the Citadel for you to explore and figure out if there is actually any lore connecting that ship with this build. But currently that is for no one to know and for me to figure out, so you can find it out later. If you're interested in actually doing that, because I promise I will, click the join button below next to the subscribe button to become a member today, or support me on Patreon. By supporting me either of these 2 ways, you can actually download this world and explore it for yourself. The world download is available for Java and Bedrock editions, so regardless of whatever you play on, feel free to support me below. Anyways, back in the garden terraces, I built up some trellises using spruce and copper blocks. And very quickly I swapped out that design with red nether bricks and mangrove wood, which I think fits a lot better with the current aesthetic of our build. I also added some more leaves pretty much everywhere to act as vines and bushes around the area, and then I continued to flesh out the walls of the terraces with some more detailing. And for the last time, zooming way back out, I built some traveling cards, and on the path between the Lost Castle and the Citadel, I built a small kind of traveler's rest area. This place has some maps, barrels, crafting tables, and a cauldron for cooking food. I figured that since people at the Citadel are often traveling to do research at the Lost Castle, it would make sense to add some stuff indicating life and movement along the road between these two places. And finally, I entered the terraces one last time to add this small little flower shop for anyone that may be just walking up the garden terraces and wants to pick up a flower on the way. You never know. But what I do know is that that is all that we have for this video. This project is finally finished. You wouldn't believe it, but I've been working on this thing for almost half a year now. There were many times that I worked on this thing and I just didn't really know how to continue. It was really important to me that I followed through on some kind of idea that I felt passionate about, and I'm incredibly happy to say that I know that I've accomplished that here. And over the course of the past 6 months, it's actually really helped me better kind of understand my overall design process and my creative intentions when I go into starting a new project. Let me know what you guys think about this build in the comments below, and also tell me about any ideas or methods that you have for dealing with builder's block or any other type of kind of creative blockage when you're playing Minecraft. And I really want to shout out the person that left this comment that I brought up in the beginning of the video, because everyone has the potential to be creatively stumped, and it's definitely not something that anyone should feel embarrassed talking about. So I hope that you either learned something from this video, or you just enjoyed watching me build up the Citadel. If you want to explore this world for yourself, you can support me on Patreon or become a channel member below by clicking the join button. By doing either of these things and supporting me, you'll have access to all of my world downloads. And even if you're not a Patreon supporter or a YouTube member, I just want to thank you for taking the time and watching this video. The channel has been doing incredible recently, and it overwhelms me. It's a little scary. It's really awesome. I didn't expect it. It gets to be very exponential at times, and the video that I made on 15 ways to detail your Minecraft world and make it more immersive, that video blew up. It was crazy. It exploded. It literally exploded. I opened my YouTube channel one morning and just fire everywhere. But for real, thank you all so much for just supporting me in general, for subscribing and liking my content, and stay tuned for the second episode of my Hardcore Survival series. If you haven't seen that series yet, go watch the premiere first episode. It is the last video that I published on my channel, very easy to find. Go watch it if you are so inclined. But yeah, stay tuned for episode 2. That will be releasing shortly, within the month. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap up the video. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you, and I'll see all of you in the next video.